Welcome to Inside the Birds Pregame Live, presented by MOJO, the sports stock market app. Welcome to Rivers Casino here in Delaware Ave in Philadelphia, where Philly loves a winner. That's where we're at here at Jack's Bar and Grill. I'm Geoff Mosher alongside my co-host Adam Caplan. Joining us as always, the best analyst you can ever get. Starting with Greg Cosell. Yeah, no, I mean you. I mean you.
For our money that he needs. That's not a lot.
For our money, hold on. And joining us soon will be former Eagles wide receiver Jason Avant. Happy Hanukkah, season's greetings. It's great to be with you all. Greg, how you doing today?
Doing great.
You ready to break down some game?
Yeah, especially after yesterday's, that first game and the last game were kind of fun to watch.
Yeah. I think Eagles fans would hope for a little more of a one-sided game from start to finish than that Minnesota game yesterday.
No, it was a one-sided game.
Not from start to finish. Well, yeah, one and then one.
The start was one-sided, the finish was one-sided.
It was. And then came overtime, and nobody knew what they could do with the football. Unbelievable stuff, but that's the time of the year we're in. Games are getting very exciting. Games are clutch. The Eagles are looking to make it 5 straight wins today as they invade the hometown of our man, Jason Avant, who will be with us momentarily. They will play the Chicago Bears. The Eagles, of course, coming off a 48-22 spanking of the New York Giants to get to 12-1 on the season. The Bears, well, the Bears.
I was thinking about this all this week. People who know me know I'm not a homer by any means.
Sure.
I just don't understand how people can't say that the Eagles, as we speak at this moment, are the best team in football. I mean, it seems like every week there's another team that analysts feel like they need to throw out there.
Yeah.
I mean, the Eagles are 12-1, and they win pretty handily.
The problem is, Greg, that they have so much talent. That apparently it's too much talent. You can't credit them for being 12-1. What's up, Jason?
It's also the schedule.
You know what I'm saying? I know there's a season left, and who knows what happens in the playoffs, because obviously they're in.
Right.
But they're 12-1. And then look what they did the last 2 weeks. And yet every single week, we're, this team's the best team, this team's the best team, this team's the best team.
You know what makes their rise to where they are so incredible? Do you know they've not lost a game on the road in nearly 13 months, in over a year?
That's unbelievable. For how difficult
November
it used to
28th
be
of last year.
To win on the road.
Lost on the road. In this day and age in the NFL, not to lose on the road, it's remarkable.
It is.
Wow.
Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there because, again, I don't really care in terms of how people see it.
Right.
But that just gets thrown out there.
Yeah.
They're 12-1.
They're 12-1. And a lot of their games recently have not been that close.
No.
They're establishing their dominance. Jason, welcome to the show. How you doing, brother?
Good.
Late hands?
Wait, you didn't have late hands though, right? Did you?
You got late feet.
I was always open.
But you don't always get the ball though.
Yeah, you don't always get the ball.
Well,
that happens. You're
See, that's what receivers say and quarterbacks say interceptions are never their fault,
of
right?
course.
Yeah, that's
Right.
Receivers, running backs are secondary position. So you can get angry with the system if you want to. What you can control is showing up on film.
Right.
Guys like Greg has said.
Yes. Well, the Eagles deserve a ton of credit, as Greg was saying, for being 12-1, winning convincingly. The Bears, well, they're coming out of the bye week, so they didn't lose to the bye week, but they have lost 6 straight games. They are 3-10, but they got a very exciting player at quarterback. I think we all look forward to discussing what the Bears have at the quarterback position and where they're going with him. We'll do that in this show. Now, one thing I always loved when I was covering the team on the beat, I loved when the Eagles had a late year matchup in Chicago against the Bears, because I was always anticipating some snow. There will be none today, correct? Is that correct?
Yes.
Tropical Storm Caplan.
Unless the snow pulls a 2013 Eagles Lions when it was not on the forecast.
Right.
It just showed up out of the blue. And the Lions, talking to them after the game, they were not prepared for it.
They were not.
So, no, there's not.
So what is the weather, Hurricane Caplan, today?
It's going to be in the low to mid-20s, wind 13, 14 miles an hour. You can throw that, by the way.
You can throw in that. By the way, hurricane has been taken in this city. This is tropical storm.
Tropical Storm Caplan.
You're not trying to infringe upon
Glenn Hurricane Schwartz, yes.
That's a true legend right there.
There you go.
All right. I was hoping for some type of snow as this game materialized, but it's not going to happen. But Jason, you are from Chicago, born and bred. That's your hometown team.
Yeah.
Did you ever play in high school? Did you play any snow games?
Oh, maybe one. It wasn't much because your high school season is over a lot sooner than the NFL and college.
Oh, I thought it
season.
started snowing in September in Chicago.
So maybe a few years, but I didn't play in too many snow games in high school.
What about in
mainly
Michigan?
rain? Michigan, yes.
Did you like playing in the
Usually, do I like playing in snow?
Yeah.
Snow's not that bad. Rain's worse. So I don't mind snow. Snow's not bad at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
But no lean either way? Like you didn't oh, it's cool, it's snow game.
You know,
fans love it.
No, I'm a receiver. You don't get the ball much. They try to game plan you out of it in the snow and the inclement weather. They try to run the ball more because it's
Especially when it's
slicker
windy, right?
and that type of thing. So it's not a game that you just enjoy being they might as well switch my 8 into a 6, right? So instead of 81, I'm 61 that game.
What's your view of like, what to you was cold weather? Like when you played, when did you feel like, hey, this is cold?
The worst weather that you can play in, to me, out of my years playing, is around 32 and raining. 32, 33 and raining, like right before that freezing point, freezing rain area, like that, and you put in a little wind, that's the worst. Like,
So like
it can be.
if it's, let's say, 23 degrees today in Chicago and not terrible wind, you're
totally fine.
That didn't bother you.
No, you're gonna be fine because you have the heaters, you have ways like things that can keep you warm. You got hand warmers, you got other things that can help you.
Would you wear gloves on the field? Would you wear gloves or anything special for the game?
No, like I always wear gloves whether it's hot or cold. So you have your receiver gloves, but those are not like warm. But you do have your hand warmers, you have a hand pouch, you have like cold weather gear that kind of keeps you. Like there's things that you can do. I would put like Vaseline on my feet, then put bag on them, and then put my socks on.
That's what they did in the ice ball.
Different things like that. Like there's different ways.
It's
to
funny.
keep
I didn't play football, so my high school didn't have football growing up in Queens. But I remember because in the Northeast, you start baseball season early, and I played baseball. And I just remember, I think it was my junior year, our first baseball game. It was like 22 degrees, and it was sunny, so we played the game.
Right.
And I just remember, hitting the ball, and I thought my hands were
you
going
don't
to fall off.
want to get jammed on
I
an
thought my
inside
hands were going
fastball.
to fall off. Because baseball's not meant to be 22 degrees.
Oh, now, did your hand, like when you were catching the cold, did you feel it?
Oh, it hurts. It hurts really bad when you catch the ball in the cold. That's like you have to prepare for it mentally, but that's all it is. It's a mental adjustment.
Right.
Usually, like you can tell who's going to win the game in cold weather. You literally can if you're at the game, not if you're watching it from TV most of the time.
Right.
But usually when the series over, the team runs to go right to the bench.
Right.
That team's gonna lose, right? Because they're worried about staying warm.
Okay.
They're not there to play the game.
Did you wear sleeves or not?
College, no sleeves. It wasn't allowed. Right.
Really?
When I was at Michigan, receivers couldn't wear sleeves in the cold.
Lloyd Carr?
Yeah, it was a Lloyd thing, and it was a fumble thing. Like if you wear them and you try to fight for yards at the catch, a lot of times with those sleeves,
because it would,
it was slick.
Slick, yeah.
So he didn't like that, but in the pros they didn't have that rule. So yes, I would just get down. Like
It's interesting you say that because I work with a guy. I don't know if you know him. He's a Chicago guy named Darryl Campbell who went to Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Do you know Darryl at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know him as a relationship, but I know him.
So, well, he played at Notre Dame with Justin Tuck and played in the NFL for a while.
Senior ball guy.
Yeah. What's that?
He was a senior ball guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So
D-tackle,
anyway,
right?
D-tackle, yeah. But he said that he never wore sleeves no matter the cold because he said what would happen is you'd sweat and it would kind of stick because and he said it was so uncomfortable that it would. With the sleeves just sticking to your arms.
Sure.
So he never wore sleeves, even though it was really cold. Because obviously at Notre Dame, you're going to play some cold weather games.
Yes, definitely. It's interesting. You asked Jason, I don't know if you researched it, but you said, for example, what if it's 23 degrees and it is supposed to be today in Chicago at 1 o'clock kickoff, exactly 23 degrees.
Well, I knew that.
Oh, all right. You did research. See, I was trying to give you a little more credit, just pulled it off the top of your head.
Once in a while, I research meaningless stuff. Normally, I leave the meaningless stuff for Caplan, but every once in a while, I do that myself.
There you go.
That's actually pretty good. Good job.
All right, well, there's still plenty of time before kickoff to come on down here to Rivers Casino and Sportsbook, place a wager, enjoy the game. They got the flat screen TVs, gigantic flat screen TVs. Think you're like in downtown Manhattan with these screens. Then you got nice leather recliners. You got Jack's Bar and Grill here to give you food.
No doubt.
Wonderful place. So make sure if you want us to answer a question or if you want to leave your score prediction and you're watching on YouTube, you just leave that in the chat box and we'll try to get to it. Let's start, like we always do, kind of a big picture look at what's going on with the Eagles as they enter this Week 14 game. We'll get into the X's and O's in a minute. Adam, I wanted to ask you this because there's been a whole lot of talk this week about everything other than the game itself. But a lot of it talk about, is it talent, is it coaching, is it execution and everything?
Sure.
We've talked a lot about the play calling, the sequencing that we've seen from this offensive staff. We also talked about the talent that they've added. In your mind, when you watch the Eagles, what stands out to you more right now? Is it talent individually or the play calling and the execution?
So I got this from someone from another team. I'm just going to give you what the guy said. I was not planning on talking about this. I was actually going to save it for another show, but you put it in the script. I think it's great. I think it's perfect. He said it's a perfect marriage of coaches understanding what a quarterback can do. Don't ask him to do things that he can't do. But this year he's made such a jump from taking more volume. Obviously, they're a high-volume pass team.
Yeah.
It's a perfect marriage of coaches saying, okay, I think he can make this pass. Let's keep asking him to do it. They're giving him stuff they wouldn't give him last year.
Right.
And that's a perfect marriage that you have. And to use a Cosell term, this is one of my favorite terms that Greg uses. He's an executor. He wasn't an executor last year. Mm-hmm. They go, here's what we want you to do.
He's become a ball distributor.
Yeah,
anyway.
and he executes it. And Greg, I just, when I watch this guy execute, I just figure that coaches will not call these plays unless they believe in it. And they believe in what he's doing, and they don't take stuff away. They keep giving them more stuff.
Well, I think he's capable of that mentally. And that's the first thing, and you could speak to this better than I could, but I think that's the first thing, because coaches will not give players, particularly a quarterback, things that they don't feel they can handle, because that leads to turnovers. And it leads to indecision by the quarterback, it leads to uncertainty, it leads to playing without a lot of confidence, and you never want your quarterback to feel that way.
For both guys, for Jay and Greg, is there anything when you watch the tape you go, geez, I wish they do this, or do you think they're pretty much giving them a lot of stuff?
Well, so let's back up, because I don't want to ever have it like looming. Every offensive coordinator and or head coach that's a good coach, when they have a young player and a player that they view as the franchise, are going to put things in that they like, right? And that they can do. Tom Brady is going to have game plans where, hey, Tom, what do you like?
Right.
Aaron Rodgers, what do you like? We're going to put in things that you like and things that you can do, right? So I think that's a sign of his maturation and maturity. So I think that, yes, Jalen Hurts has been able to expound upon this game and grow, and now he can add to the discussion just like Aaron Rodgers and other people can, and say, hey, I like this better than this. And yes, so you're going to see some things that are particular to him, and it's there not because he can't do other things, but it's there because it's what he likes. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So I just don't want to ever. I love the way he's maturing, and I love the things that he's doing, and I don't want ever to like he can't do multiple things. I just think that they're finding things that he likes, and he's executing.
And by the way, there's nothing wrong with saying too that, and because coaches will speak about this, not publicly because there's no need to, but there's nothing wrong with saying that, hey, he's doing things really well, but then he still has a ways to go.
Sure.
That's the way coaches will think.
Sure.
And there's nothing wrong with saying that.
Right.
Right. Jeff, we had this conversation before we started the show officially. There's nothing wrong with saying that, you know what, the Eagles have a really good O-line. The Eagles have a really good run game. They got really good receivers. And Jalen Hurts is executing at a high level. There's nothing wrong with saying all that.
It's the old two things can be true at once that people sometimes struggle with.
And to answer your question, like, verbatim, I would like to see them like boot a little bit more, and that's like simple things, like just play action a little bit more, roll them to left, roll them right. I think that's just an extension of the run game that they don't utilize a bunch for some reason. I just think that's,
by the way,
he pretty easy offense that they don't really take advantage of.
He throws really well on the run. We've seen this in training camp.
Yeah.
Like really well. In fact, that's the one thing he did well in 2020 when we go to practice. But obviously he was not mature enough as a passer yet. Now he is. So maybe that's what they.
And what I'm saying is like your naked game, right? Where you're extending the ball and you're bringing them out right, that type of thing. I think that's such easy offense for them to run that they don't ever take advantage of. Not a bunch at all.
To tie a bow on it, two things stand out to me. One of your expression is from you, which is KYP, know your personnel, and another one is the number one job of a coach in any sport at any level is to put their players in position to succeed. That's easier said, but I think you look around the NFL, certain teams you say, is that coaching staff actually putting that player or players in position to succeed. I think the Eagles are doing an excellent job
and
of
it's
doing
not
that.
a knock on the quarterback. You know, I love when I hear people say, well, someone's a system quarterback. Well, as Jay knows, every coach has a system.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Every coach has a system.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
Right.
So and the coach wants the quarterback to execute the system. Now, are there quarterbacks who can then make plays outside of the system? Of course.
Sure.
And in the NFL, some view that as increasingly important now. That if you can't do that, maybe there's a limitation. We know Jalen Hurts can do that. But every coach has a system. It's a meaningless statement to say someone's a system quarterback.
Yeah. Well, put Tom Brady in a wishbone offense. Think that would have been a good system?
Greg, you and I used to talk at NFL Films. This is many years ago, because people would make fun of Joe Montana. He can never do this in this system. He doesn't control that. He was great in the West Coast system.
And by the
right?
way, I remember talking to Bill Walsh, and Bill Walsh said to me, he said, we don't have the skinny post in our system with Joe because Joe can't throw that. When I coached Dan Fouts, for the 1 year that he coached Fouts in San Diego, he said Fouts could throw the skinny post really well. So that was in our game plan. Joe didn't throw the skinny post well. That doesn't mean Joe Montana.
coaching.
That doesn't mean Joe Montana's not a great quarterback.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here a bit. I understand the term of system quarterback.
Well, I think we all do.
And I think that there's players that can transcend any system.
Right.
But it's no knock to the players that do well in the system. Like I spent, part of this week watching Brock Purdy. Like I just wanted to see, if it was like a system thing or if this guy, and he made a lot of plays. Now, you can't knock him because Trey Lance didn't do it.
Right.
But he's making the plays that he's asked to, is he doing anything special? No, but he's running the system really well.
Sure.
So
the question is, could he go to another team and a different offense and do just as well?
Yeah, are you going to ask
Those
him
are
to
the
be
guys
Josh
who get
Allen?
that label.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Exactly. All right.
But is Josh Allen a guy that can be in any system?
I would
system?
say
I would
yes.
think.
Yeah, because he has the arm to do it.
Yeah,
Right.
And that's
say
what I'm
yes.
saying.
Yeah.
Right. All right, let us talk about the injuries in this game for both teams. We'll get into it with the Eagles. A little bit of a surprise as they will be without again today for the 5th straight game. Dallas Goedert, along with C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Robert Quinn, and Aaron Siposs. They are all on injured reserve for Goddard. This will be the 5th game in a row that he missed, even though he was activated into the 21-day practice window, which I believe is the first time this year that the Eagles have had a player activated into the practice window who did not come and play the first game eligible. The Birds did sign 2-time Pro Bowl punter Brett Kern to the practice squad to make up for Aaron Siposs, and he has been elevated for today's game. Gardner-Johnson will miss the 3rd of 4 games. He still has the lacerated kidney. Robert Quinn, he's out for the 2nd straight game. Boy, it feels like he's been out for 5 games in a row, but this is really just the 2nd game on IR for Robert Quinn. The knee injury, and those who are on the 53 and will not play are Reed Blankenship, who remains out with a knee injury. His spot will likely be filled by Josiah Scott. And Adam, we were talking about this. They only have 3 safeties
That surprised
on the
me
53.
that they did not move Anthony Harris up. Now, part of it is because if Blankenship, it comes down, is Blankenship going to be ready by the end of the regular season? If he's not, the final 3 games, you can use those 3 elevations. And as you told us on our show this week, the elevations reset, or there's actually none. There's no limit in the playoffs.
Right.
So they could use the 3 for Harris and put them up every week. Because right now, let's talk about it. It's Kevon Wallace.
Yep.
It's Josiah Scott, who we know, we were told actually he's taken periodic snaps at safety in the regular season.
Yep.
And obviously Ebb. So that's
up.
it. If someone gets hurt, you only have 2 guys.
Well, one
It's a
thing
little
we
risky.
do know is they don't want to play Kayvon Wallace.
That's correct. They do not want to play him, and we obviously
Based
know
on?
that
You just
Just the actions.
I think that obviously based on, they're with him every day too. First of all, we're not. So there's something about Kayvon Wallace when they've watched him for 2 years now, right? 2 years? That they don't feel he's good enough to be a starting player in this league.
when you scouted him, when you saw his tape coming out of Clemson, was it?
Yeah.
What were the issues? I know some. We know Jeff and I knows. We had a couple teams tell us they had a 6-round grade on him. So what?
I'm trying to remember, but here's what I think his Clemson tape showed, if memory serves me correctly.
Okay.
I thought he was a small box safety who was competitive and physical, but he was a box safety and he was small. And he was not rangy, he was not overly athletic, so as you looked at him as a transition to the NFL game, unless you're thinking he's Bob Sanders, which he's not, unless you're thinking he's that kind of guy, then what is a small box safety without really good athleticism and range in the NFL?
Right.
What's the role for that guy?
Yeah. Well,
And it's pretty limited.
You need him 2 times a year.
right.
Yeah,
No, I mean,
they play the
they did
Titans.
draft
right. No, I mean, but that's what he was.
Right. They were, at the time of drafting him, still coached by Jim Schwartz on defense.
Right.
Yeah. He did play more safety up, with his cover 1, cover 3.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was a draft that we know of that certain mouths were trying to be fed at the same time as well.
Well, the thing that he
True.
can't do, and this is why it doesn't work in Gannon's defense, is if you're going to play cover 4, where if it's a 2-by-2 set and you're essentially going to match up to the number 2 receiver or the slot receiver when he goes vertical, he can't do that.
Right.
So that poses a problem.
Which
in
is
that
also
defense.
not
Yes.
Anthony Harris's strong suit. It
No.
didn't surprise me that Anthony Harris was not called up also.
But he's in his system for so many years that he's earned a level of trust with him.
And he's a little looser. I mean, he's not an explosive athlete, but he's a little looser.
He's actually played both
Yeah.
deeper and up.
Yes. Yeah.
But again, you do worry about it. And I get the Bears don't have a great offense, but hey, they're an NFL team. Somebody gets hurt, you're down to 2 guys.
Yeah.
And now Wallace is a guy, getting back to what you were talking about, what happened was Schwartz wanted a safety. And it was to the point where they felt they had to get him a safety.
Yeah.
That's playing to what you were bringing up. I remember that story.
And 1 round earlier, he wanted a linebacker because he didn't get Kenneth Murray,
Yes,
and then
and
they
they
wound up
used-
with Davion Taylor.
Yeah, and
So,
thankfully for the Eagles' sake, they have not done that the last 2 years. They're kind of sticking to what they wanted to do, and they're bored.
sticking to the board, always a good thing.
Yes.
Not 100% accurate, but at least you know what your identity is and you get your kind of player. You got a better chance to succeed that way. Christian Ellis is elevated for the 3rd and final time today, so the team will have to make a decision if he continues to play well on special teams. Do they sign him to the 53, or do they try to get by the last few games without him and then have the resetting of the elevations for the playoffs? We will see what happens with that. Expected to play for the Eagles, barring anything that unforeseen. Quez Watkins with the shoulders all right, and Lane Johnson with the abdomen, Landon Dickerson with the back, and Kyron Johnson's shoulders should all be able to play.
Okay, well, let's get to Quez and we'll get to Goddard's situation. So with Watkins, it's the same shoulder, and he gets aggravated, and you see he'll leave the game for a little bit, then come back, and he's just kind of toughing it out. He's had this for a while now.
Right.
So it's something they have to keep an eye on. Now, Goddard, it hasn't really been talked about, but this did happen. He actually told the media that he had a shoulder fracture. Now, what it is, it's called a glenoid fracture. It's your shoulder socket. It's his left shoulder. I actually asked someone who would know. It's his left shoulder. And he feels fine. He has to get cleared medically. So, and that's why I think, I don't think Sirianni wanted to say he could play and then he doesn't play, because even if Goddard says he feels good, it's a medical decision.
Right.
If it was a full fracture, it's a small fracture, it's a full fracture, he would not be available to the playoffs.
Sure.
It's a non-displaced fracture, he did not need surgery. That's why he feels okay.
Right.
That's why he felt good in like 3 weeks, but it's got to heal. So it's a medical decision. We've not heard he's had a setback. We'll learn more. Maybe Sirianni will talk about it after the game, but I know most of the reporters locally thought he was going to play.
Right.
I don't understand the rush.
I agree with
Well, there may not be,
You're-
Jay.
you're
This may be an
yeah,
example.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
40 points a game you're averaging
and
without.
it's really not his call.
You're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a medical decision. Now, he's got to be honest with him how he feels. Jay, when you had an injury, right, would you wear a non-contact jersey in practice? Like
No.
if it's the shoulder, no?
That's only the quarterback.
No, but
there
if it
are
was the
some
shoulder,
players that
it
wear
was a
the,
back or shoulder.
yeah.
It was a back or shoulder. You wouldn't have
Nah,
anything
you don't have any jerseys. Like you have protection.
like that? Right, okay.
Yeah, but they don't. They
Other
don't
than the
baby
quarterback,
it like
okay, other
that.
than the
No,
quarterback, okay.
no.
Gotcha.
They want to test it.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of times.
Gotcha.
Well, the Bears did get some important players back today, but they are missing a ton of significant players who are out for the year or just on IR. And that includes their running back Khalil Herbert, who had been activated like Goddard into the window but is not ready to return. They are also going to be missing wide receiver Darnell Mooney, one of their deep threats, and safety Eddie Jackson. Also out on the 53, but out is wide receiver Chase Claypool.
Yeah, that was a surprise on
Yeah.
Friday, yes.
The
So,
knee injury.
yep, and I'll tell you what, Jeff, and N'Keal Harry should play, by the way, this back injury.
in his spot. Yep.
They are down to EQ St. Brown, Dante Pettis, Byron Pringle, N'Keal Harry, and the kid. They got this kid Webster from the Niners.
Is Jones out?
Is Jones?
Bayless Jones?
He's available. They just don't play him a lot. He had that fumble
Yeah.
against Washington on a Monday night game, and they kind of reduced his playing time, but hopefully he'll play. But if you look at it, EQ St. Brown, Luke Getzey wanted him. If you look at these receivers, they have something in common. They all have size. They were in early on the MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling signing. Once they found out what he wanted, they were out. But they wanted big receivers. That's what Getzey wanted. That's my understanding. Pringle's 6'1", Harry 6'2", 6'3", EQ St. Brown 6'4". Pettis is like 6'1", but can run a little bit. Former second-round pick. As you know, he's bounced around. But former second-round.
I have not heard Byron Pringle's name hardly at all.
He was
this
hurt.
year.
He actually was hurt.
Was he?
Yeah,
Okay.
he was hurt.
He was with the Chiefs last
Yes.
year.
Yeah, I remember. And he was a free agent, and he actually wound up.
I watched him
doing
coming out of
all right.
Kansas State. I thought he was an interesting prospect because he's a big kid. He's a physical kid.
Yeah.
I mean, he made some plays for the Chiefs.
Yeah, he
Obviously,
did.
they have a really good passing game.
Yeah.
But he made some plays for the Chiefs.
Well, he must be a system wide receiver then.
Exactly. There you go. Well, they just have a system quarterback.
Right tackle Larry Borum, is it?
Yeah,
Borum is probably not
He's
going
not going
to
to
play.
play. In fact, he's been dealing with this shoulder injury for like 2 months. So it's going to be old friend Riley Reeve, who
He's been starting.
yes, who starts for him now. In fact, he started at left tackle in the championship game in 2017 against the Eagles.
For the Vikings, right.
And he's played right tackle and left tackle. You might remember him for the Lions to start his career.
Sure.
So he's been around, but
They start a rookie left tackle pretty much all year, Braxton Jones.
Right.
Small school kid,
We
too.
will get into him as well. All right, the good news for them is that they have a nice young secondary, some building block pieces. 2 of them make their return today. That's safety Jaquan Brisker, cornerback Kyler Gordon should be able to play today. They were both out the last 2
yeah,
games.
they're actually cleared. Both were cleared to play. But yeah, they've had a bunch of issues with not just those guys. They've had a lot of concussion issues with this team. It's kind of weird.
Right.
But this is the strength of their football team on defense if they have one.
Yeah.
It's this talented young secondary. Down the line, they have a chance to build something special. But you don't have Eddie Jackson. Vilder's back. They're playing Houston Carson. We'll get into kind of how he's being used. And Jalen Johnson, you and I interviewed on our show 2 years ago.
Good player. I
Good
like
player. He had shoulder problems in college, but pretty talented.
Another tough physical corner, a guy from Utah, which, Utah and Washington, you're getting corners from there. You're getting tough physical players. All right, let us get into this game. Today is the first time that the Eagles will face last year's number 11 overall pick, Bears quarterback Justin Fields. It's been a wild second season for Fields, and the Bears, it's been a tough start for them. We know that. Tough rookie year he had last year. The Ohio State product is playing for his second coach and offensive coordinator in 2 seasons, and the adjustment did not start off so good. If you look at his numbers through the first 5 games, he had a 73.1 passer rating. His completion percentage was under 56%. He only had 3 passing touchdowns. He was bottom or mid to bottom of the league in almost every passing category. That was through the first 5 weeks. And also, the Bears had only scored 86 points through the first 5 weeks, which was one of the lowest in the league. Then something happened. Greg, you can say a lot about the Bears. They've been losing games, lost 6 in a row, but they've been scoring more points.
Yep.
Fields has been producing more yardage and more offense. What have you seen since that first 5 weeks to now that is different with what they're doing with him?
Well, it was clear early in the season they did not want him to drop back and throw the football.
Right.
That was pretty evident. It's not that they've all of a sudden become a passing team, but I think they've used Fields' legs quite a bit by design. They run him by design. It would not surprise me, I don't know this for a fact, if even when they have him drop back to pass, if they tell him that, hey, if you see something, go. Because right now, the way he's playing now, he's the most explosive running quarterback in the league in terms of distance runs.
Right.
Because he takes it to the house.
Yes.
And, he's kind of a strider. He almost runs like a track guy at times. He's throwing the ball better, though. He's incrementally improving. Mm-hmm. He's doing a little bit better job as far as understanding where to throw the football. I mean, they're trying to define it really clearly for him.
Sure.
But there are plays where you see, and I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, where it appears as if he saw something, wasn't there, came to something else.
Right.
And that's where you need to get to. Everybody talks about quarterbacks that run. Is that sustainable? To me, that depends on the quarterback.
Yeah.
How he responds.
I'm sure they would like to not have to have him
Right.
averaging over 100 yards per game.
Right, but it's also a weapon. It also, as Jay knows, changes the way defenses play.
Right.
And that's the other thing is that's a factor. Because when your quarterback can run, and whether it's scrambles or whether it's by design. I mean, we see what happens with the Eagles with Jalen Hurts.
Right.
So it changes the way defenses have to prepare and play.
Right. So let me ask you this on that point, because he's a big kid, he's not small. As someone who played with Donovan and as someone who played with Cam Newton, when he takes off to run, how hard is it for a defense to be able to catch up and then be able to bring him down at that size going downhill the way he does?
Definitely a hard challenge for everyone. It just makes you disciplined on defense. It's a controlled pass rush at times. You can't just get after the passer the way you want to. You have to be able to structure your rush and layer it where guys are up the field, keeping contained. There's a second wave of guys, and they always have to replace. There are so many defensive assignments that you have to complete in order to contain that guy. So yes, it's very, very hard to contain. And like he said, there's certain coverages that you are not permitted to play at times because of the threat of him running the ball. So it's definitely a challenge. I believe that Justin Fields is playing way better. And his last game versus the Packers, he threw some dimes.
He did. He can throw the football.
To St. Brown on the left side, that was right in stride for a touchdown. That was a dime to Harry, a dime down the field. He played extremely well, and he threw a late pick in that game. And that wasn't his fault. It was a terrible route by the wide receiver, just not understanding.
Right.
And maybe he shouldn't have picked on, Jair Alexander so many times.
Well, they picked on him earlier and they beat him.
And they beat him, but they picked on him too many times, But yeah, I'm thinking that he's playing really good football, and all of these games, when you watch them, they're close.
Yeah.
They're not.
They had several one-possession losses of 3 points, 5 points, 6 points.
They're close games. They're not being blown out by a lot of teams. The Cowboys got them, but that's about it lately.
You're talking about a quarterback that just needs more and more reps. Don't forget his rookie year was cut short. Then a new coaching staff comes in. I'm not sure people realize what that's like when a new coaching staff comes in. You're starting from scratch with terminology, concepts, how they're relayed to you, how you have to understand them. The example that was always given to me by coaches who've coached forever, it'd be like, okay, so one year you're studying French. Then all of a sudden the next year come in and now it's Spanish. You're just starting from scratch.
Right.
Okay, because it's all taught differently and you have to take it in differently.
Right.
Okay, so he's going through that. So, but he's a really talented guy. He's 6'3", he's 230. I've been around him. He's a big dude.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a really talented guy. I think there's a sense from coaches that I've spoken to that the mental part of the game needs further work, that he doesn't see things as quickly as he needs to see them, but that also can be reps.
Yeah.
And like I said, that could be a new system.
Sure.
He just has to, and because they want to use his talents, the fact that they ask him to run a lot will slow down that process, because you can't get better from the pocket with the details and nuance required to play in the pocket if you're leaving the pocket.
Right.
So there's a balance there that is, you have to try to find that balance.
These all sound like very familiar conversations that we might have been having this time
about
last
Jalen
year
Hurts.
About Jalen Hurts.
Without question.
So
he's
go ahead.
And Philadelphia, don't get mad at me. He's more talented than Jalen Hurts.
No doubt.
Without question.
And we're not. And Jalen Hurts is the
do
better
you mean
player.
physically talented and a stronger arm?
Stronger arm.
Right. That's
stronger
obvious.
arm. He's faster than Hurts. He's not physically imposing runner.
Sure.
But just as far as arm talent, he has more arm talent than Jalen Hurts.
Right. And which is not you saying he's definitely going to be better.
No, I'm not saying that he's not. He
has
better.
more to work with.
Right. Yes, exactly. God has blessed his arm with more than Jalen Hurts.
Absolutely.
And it's the same way you say with a receiver.
Sure.
He's given Tyreek Hill more speed than other guys. He just has more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so the point, his running, because he was for 5 weeks, he was only averaging about 35, 40 yards rushing. Since then, he's been running a lot more, some design, some scramble, and that's opened up the passing game. Since week 5, more than 270 total yards per game. His passer rating since week 5 is 91.9. That's very good in the NFL. That's pretty good. Completion percentage up to 65% from 57%. And now he's responsible for more than 2 touchdowns himself per game. And then meanwhile, the Bears have scored the 11th most points in the NFL since week 5. So clearly the change in their offensive philosophy and what they're doing with the quarterback has made them a little bit more watchable, even though they're not winning games.
Give them a little bit more volume.
Yeah.
In terms of passes per game. Not a lot more, but a little bit more. And Talked to a scout who was at that pro day at Ohio State. I think he clocked him like 4.47.
Yeah, he can run.
He's so explosive. But I think it's on what we've all seen with Hurts. If you put more talent around him, and guys get it open faster, because this is not the most talented group. They've got
and they don't have a really good O-line, by the way.
Yeah, they don't. Oh, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
It's all going to come. Like next year, he's definitely going to be the starter. He went from like we'll see. Now you clearly see he could be the starter. He will be the starter. You just have to build around him. This is a new front office here. You know, they inherited this guy. This coaching staff did as well.
Sure.
But they got to take the sort of the approach the Eagles did. He's going to be your guy. Let's surround him with talent.
You give this guy with that arm, are you trying to give him a little bit more vertical threat, or are you just trying to put good, like with the Eagles, I don't think they went out and said, we need this kind of receiver. They just went out and they drafted Devontae Smith.
I think the feeling is you get good receivers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you
Right,
get
true.
the thing that I say is that you want winners, like not winners like this guy, like guys that get open, guys that win at a high level. That's what you want. Like, can I get a guy that wins 90% of the time around him? That'd be great for any quarterback.
Right.
Sure.
You know, so when you call a slant, he's going to be open on the slant. You get guys that are just average run-of-the-mill guys. They're going to be covered and make that a tough catch all the time.
If you look at the guys who are going to dress today, EQ St. Brown, Pettis, Pringle, Harry, and Jones, they're all backup players.
Yeah.
So that goes to your point. You need someone who wins immediately at the snap. Now, Mooney could do that. He's done. He had surgery. He won't be back this season. We don't know much about Velus Jones because they're not willing to play him. So they got to find some way to help him. And by the way, Claypool's out today. So
He's not that guy.
And I know. Okay.
Well, he thinks it.
Yeah,
We all know he
Well,
ain't.
the Steelers. I cannot believe the Steelers got a second-round pick. But Greg, you were pretty vocal in your criticism of him when he was drafted. You were not his tape at Notre Dame. You were not loving his tape.
I did not love his tape.
What did you say?
In fact, when I watched his tape at Notre Dame, and I didn't bring my breakdown of him, I brought some other players, but when I watched Claypool at Notre Dame, I actually said to myself, I think this guy could be a kind of a movement tight end. And then he ran the 4.38 at the Combine, as often happens at the Combine, as Jay knows, and all of a sudden people thought, oh, this guy's something special because he ran a 4.3. He didn't play that way on tape at Notre Dame.
Right.
He looked like a big tight end to me.
Yep.
And I think we've seen that at times he's run by people in the league, but
Nate Gary.
that's not really, he hasn't really developed as a wide receiver.
Right.
And in fact, if he were to have developed as a wide receiver, he wouldn't have been traded.
No.
So,
If you don't make it as a wide receiver on the Steelers,
no.
something's wrong with you.
But just one point I want to make with what Jay said about the word discipline to me is key. And I'm not suggesting the Bears are going to put up 30 or 35 on the Eagles. That's not my point. But coaches still coach every single week. And when he's in the gun and there's an offset back and he's in the gun a lot, you have Reddick and Sweat now. They're going to have to be really careful because the zone read stuff is really hard to deal with.
Yeah.
Because Fields, even if you play it well, like let's say you decide, okay, the end's not going to crash. He's just going to stay. Fields can still run around those guys.
He still can beat you.
He still can
scored,
beat you.
He scored a touchdown last week with the perfect defense call.
Yeah.
It was the perfect defense
You're talking
call.
about the blitz?
The blitz, the corner. He was there.
He was there.
He was there.
Then they cut inside of him and he ran for 50
And
yards.
if he can do that to an athletic person, he can do that to a defensive end.
Sure.
So you're dealing with Sweat and Reddick, who are really both having outstanding years, clearly they're attacking players.
Right.
Particularly when they're at the wider position at the end. They're going to have to be careful.
Yeah.
For both of you guys, have you noticed when you watch this tape, do you see teams spying, using the spy, or would you use one anyway?
So here's the thing: there's always you have to have a designation if you're going to play man-to-man. You just have to have someone that's responsible for him. Like I said, you know what?
Because he can outrun everybody.
You can play man, but you have to do it the way the Dolphins did yesterday when they were playing the Bills, right? They literally had their ends come up the field and keep contained.
Right.
They had guys there that were designed. Their defense was designed to try to keep Josh Allen from just breaking out there. So it was like a layered rush. Yeah, they had people that were responsible, but it was within the framework of their defense. Like, the ends would get upfield, but they were retraced. Everyone was like they were trying to like cattle, someone in and reel them in rather than just being reckless. So,
Yeah.
yes.
So, in answer to your question, teams have spied Justin Fields without success. He runs by them.
That's what I mean.
See, that's the thing. He's a better athlete than whoever you're going to use as a spy.
All right, we've seen Jalen do that.
Right, so you have to be careful about that. It sounds, spy to me always sounds good when you're probably sitting around talking about how you want to defend him.
Yeah.
But the fact is, because I've seen this on tape, I think I've watched every one of his games this year, teams have spied him. It's not really successful at all.
The thing is that the best thing you can do versus a guy like this is play zone, and most teams do.
Yeah.
Most teams do against the Eagles. Most teams will versus the Bears, and that kind of helps out the receivers. The receivers are going to get free running lanes a lot of times, so these guys that are not, world beaters at receiver are still going to be able to be open because they're going to see a lot of zone coverage.
Well, and the other factor too, I think, is with zone. Very often you're asking then Fields to have to make window throws, to make timing and anticipation throws. Man is easier for a quarterback because it's man.
Right.
You can pretty much pick out who you want to throw to.
Right. Well,
But
they have to win, though.
Right, they have to win, but you can still pick out who you want to throw
Yeah,
to.
yes.
That's not a read thing necessarily. Whereas zone, you have to go through a little more of a mental processing to see where people are dropping, who am I going to throw to, their window throws.
Right.
If you're late on a window throw, you get the backside guy that's going to be there. I mean, it makes more sense to play more zone.
One thing off of that, have teams done this where some teams might play with a lot of defensive backs, more linebackers? Like, is there anything you notice in terms of personnel teams are doing?
Well, that depends. That's situationally.
Okay.
Obviously, if they're going to
Or philosophy coming into a game, you notice? anything they're doing?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
They try to run the ball.
Yeah,
They try to run the ball, so you can't just go out there and just
No.
play nickel 100%. Now, Montgomery's a good running back. He's going to try his best, and they run the ball.
And they'll try to run the ball.
Oh, no, they only pass the ball 21 times
Yeah.
a game on average, so yeah. You know they're going to run it.
by the way, I find this stat to be just phenomenal. Justin Fields has either ran or passed for 21 of the Bears' 30 total touchdowns. So he is 70% of their scoring offense. We talk about how much Jalen Hurts is to the Eagles offense. Jalen's at 65%. He has scored 32 or accounted for 32 of the Eagles' 50 touchdowns. So Fields is doing even more. And as we mentioned, he doesn't have a lot to work with, so he has to do.
So what if Justin Fields was dropped into the Eagles offense?
It's a great question. I mean, I think
No chance.
No, I don't think they'd be 12-1 by any stretch of the means.
He's instigating.
We knew where that was coming.
But clearly, I think having more weapons around him would
he
ease
needs
up
a lot
on
more.
him
He
to have
needs
to.
more
He's not
reps,
ready yet.
and
He
he
needs
needs
a lot
more
more
reps.
work. Yeah,
he
sure.
needs
This
more
is-
reps,
yeah.
and he needs more.
No,
weapons.
here's a better
They're
question.
not a very good offense in
Here's a-
terms of people.
Yeah,
He's
They
going
a
to
tough
keep
watch.
him close, though, because he's such a talented player.
yeah.
He is.
He's competitive and he's talented.
let me ask
And he is
that.
competitive.
Yes.
Let me ask that question though in a better, more productive way here.
Oh, you're suggesting I wasn't being productive?
I think he might have been pulling my leg. Where is Justin Fields?
I resemble that remark.
Did you take your happy pills today?
Where is Justin Fields now compared to where Jalen Hurts was at this time last year? He had a better offensive line, so it
Right.
might be a little. But he didn't have very many weapons. He still had more than Fields.
Well,
but just as a
got him
processor,
Devontae
a passer.
Putting aside the differences, as Jay said, in terms of just sheer talent,
Right.
okay, he's probably at a somewhat similar state. Hey, it's easy now after 13 games to say, look at Jalen Hurts, he may very well win the MVP. But as Adam knows, there were questions not only around the league, but in the Eagle organization before this season even started as to whether Jalen Hurts was going to be their quarterback going forward. That's why they wanted to make sure they kept all those draft picks, because they knew that there'd be good quarterbacks coming out in this draft. And if they had to package, right, Adam? If they had to package picks, they were going to go get a quarterback. That seems silly
And it's
now.
just amazing. Yeah.
That seems silly now because we have access to the result after 13 games.
Right.
But it wasn't silly in May, June, July, and August.
Yeah, we haven't seen this level, this much of a transformation from a quarterback. I don't know. Have you seen
The only other one would, in a sense, be Josh Allen, because when he came out of college, people thought that if he was throwing the ball from me to Jeff, that
They
wouldn't
couldn't do
be
it.
able to throw it to Jeff.
it's
No,
just-
I mean that's still
he was inaccurate.
Yeah.
And for us to say it, it's not a bad thing. The
No.
organization was structuring, like they were questioning it too.
Oh, well, that was
So
my
it's not-
point. This is not
exactly.
us saying it.
Yeah,
Right.
right. So
This is why they were.
This is not my opinion.
Is yeah,
It's a
exactly.
fact.
We know this for a
Yes,
fact.
Yeah, exactly. So with that being said, like, I think that Justin Fields is probably somewhere, like you said, close to where Jalen Hurts was last year.
Yeah.
The big
Now,
issue.
yeah.
I'm sorry. The
Go ahead.
big issue for Fields is clearly the Eagles have, if not the best offensive line, certainly top 3.
Right.
Then they go out and they drafted Devontae Smith.
Right.
Then they go out and they
Bears
trade
got a lot of work to
for
do
A.J.
here.
Brown.
Yeah.
They've got a tight end who, in my view, is a top 3-4 tight end in the league.
Right.
Okay. The Bears have none of. I mean, Cole Kmet's a nice player.
Right.
But he's not that level of tight. He's a nice player.
Right.
Okay. He's a building block.
Right.
You don't need a tight end. But I mean, if you look at the guys they're playing today, and obviously Mooney will be back. But I mean, I wrote it down because I didn't want to be wrong because they're not guys you normally think about. You know, St. Brown, Pettis, Pringle, Harry, and Jones. Those
They're
would
all
probably
backup
be their
receivers.
top 5.
Yeah.
You know, playing today.
Yeah.
So, and as Adam said, none of them, probably at best, there's a number 3 in there. Okay. So, and the O-line is not very good at all.
Right.
So he's in a totally different situation.
Yeah.
You know, and they can't fix all of that in 1 year. So next year is not going to be this. But there's one thing that's a big pet peeve of mine, okay? And I'm just going to say it because, you know, I've talked to a lot of coaches, but this bothers me to no end. To me, when you have a young quarterback, you need a quarterback coach.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Not a guy who has the title of quarterback coach, but a quarterback coach.
Right.
Okay? Like Brian Johnson is a young guy, but he's a quarterback coach. That's what he did before he got the Eagles job.
was his position.
He was a quarterback coach.
He also called plays, too.
Right.
Yeah.
And by the way, he was a quarterback in college.
Pretty good team.
Pretty good
And
one.
people might forget that
National champion? Right?
his Utah,
No, it wasn't a national
his
champion.
Utah team beat Alabama in a
Alabama,
bowl
right,
game.
right,
Okay,
yeah.
so he played the position. So he was coached in the position, and then he became a coach coaching the position.
Correct.
Okay, it's the Bears, as I understand it, have a guy, and he may end up in 10 years. Maybe this guy who coaches there, we'll talk about him as a great coach, but that's not his background. He's not a quarterback coach. You know, when you have a quarterback. And this comes from Dick Vermeil, not from me. When you have a quarterback that you take high in the first round, okay? The whole point of your building, not just the coach, is to make that guy a great player.
Right.
And you know, you need a quarterback coach.
It doesn't go over well in the locker room, too. From a player's perspective, whenever you have a position coach that doesn't have a direct background
In the position.
He
that
did in
position,
college, though, but not at this level.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if you don't have that, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to win people over.
Yeah.
Right.
It's going to be tough. Like, I know guys even till today, like, whether it be, you know, the tight ends coach for the
Right.
Bills, I can't remember. He was my receivers coach, you know, at with the Eagles under Chip Kelly.
Justin Peele?
No, it wasn't Justin Peele.
Ted Williams? Oh, no, I'm Chip Kelly.
Shoot, I can't even remember
Yeah, I
his
can't.
name right
Melvin?
now.
Can I?
No?
No, but he was the Bills tight ends coach
Okay.
for a lot of years. But when Chip Kelly came, he became the receivers coach, and he was trying to teach us stuff out of a three-point stance. We were like,
Right,
what
no,
is
right,
that?
right.
It's tough to do it,
Right.
and that story goes on and on and on. I have some other guys that I don't want to say
Well,
their names,
well,
but it happens.
Yeah,
you
like
know?
our good buddy, John DiFilippo, okay? To me, I can't understand how this guy's not in the league. You know, we can debate whether he's the best. That's
Sure,
irrelevant.
sure.
But he's a really, really good quarterback.
Yeah, like
Yeah, I mean, that guy should be coaching a young quarterback
Yeah.
somewhere in the NFL.
Literally the only guy who got Carson Wentz
am
to
I
play
right?
at MVP
That's
level.
how it should be.
That's how it should be.
So this guy, Andrew Janocko, did play quarterback in college,
Right.
but he's been mostly on the offensive line at this level. And he's very close to Luke Getsy. They coached at Pitt together.
Okay.
So you'd rather, to your point, you'd rather have someone who's developed the quarterback before.
Right.
And again, we see what's going on with Zach Wilson. Sadly, because Greg Knapp passed away, they had to go to another coach.
And that guy, and again, maybe, like I said, maybe down the road he'll be a great coach. I think it's Calabrese is who it is.
Rob Calabrese,
Right.
who coached in college at a smaller school.
Right, but he's not a
Right.
quarterback coach.
Right.
Here.
Yeah.
Right. You'd rather have someone who's done it at this level.
Yep.
Because you
You need someone with a resume. To Jay's
Bob Big
point,
Nail.
Right.
That's
Bob
name.
Bob
McNail.
McNail, I know
That's
Bob.
the-
Yeah.
Big Nail.
Yeah.
we're good.
To Jay's point, you know, I think when a player sees that the coach, his position coach, has a resume, okay, in the league, ideally played the position, but certainly has a resume in the league, okay? Not in college. College is a different game. In the league, I think there's a respect there that automatically exists. Is that mostly the case?
There is, and it doesn't always have to be the league. You just have to have that direct
Right.
connection
Right.
of developing guys. Even if that guy was in college, but now you see a guy like Lincoln Riley that has quarterback after quarterback
Right,
after quarterback,
right.
you're going to have that respect as well.
Right.
You know, but there's a system of being developed.
Right.
You know?
Sure. All right, Jay, I want to ask you this because some people think that the key for the Eagles today on defense is that they'll be more prepared than other teams because they face Jalen Hurts in practice every day, but I don't know if that's a little bit more perception than reality, because practices are often highly scripted, and I don't know how much Jalen Hurts is taking off and running. But you do have your practice squad quarterback who does that, but every team has a practice squad quarterback. So does facing Hurts in practice every day prepare this team for Justin Fields?
This is the way it can, because remember, the defensive coordinator and the offensive coordinators are able to share information. So the same structural components of a zone read or a quarterback power, these design runs that happen, both teams use them, and now you can bounce it off the offensive coordinator. You can ask them, hey, how does this play develop, and what's your structure to this play?
Sure.
So yes, that helps. But saying, okay, Jalen Hurts, we see Jalen Hurts in practice. No, you really don't see him in practice, because you're not allowed to touch him.
Right.
Even if you were in a live period with him, and you don't, and even in training camp, y'all go live, 2 times in practice. So overall, will it help? Yes, because you can talk to Nick Sirianni, you can talk to Shane Steichen about how these plays are developed. So I think overall it can help, but it's not the same.
Right.
It isn't the same.
And he'll be faster. I guarantee he'll be faster in
but
person.
they run the same.
Right.
But they run
Yeah.
the same zone, the same zone read concepts.
Okay.
It's
That'll
the
help.
same. It's
That'll
the same around the league. It's the player that makes it.
Right.
Other than Justin Fields, I mean,
They haven't faced anybody like this, because
No.
Right,
even
they have not
Kyler
faced
Murray
anyone
week
like
5, it's not the same.
Right.
He's a sidewinder.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
got
it's not
Daniel
the same.
Jones is a
This is the
straight line
first
speed
time they're
guy.
facing someone like Fields this year.
Even going back to last year, I don't
Yeah,
believe they
yeah.
faced anyone like this.
To me, it's like the perfect scenario for the Eagles, because this is a guy you haven't faced all year. It's an offense that that's going to make you structurally sound, and you're playing something that will be similar to the running style, not throwing wild. If the Bills were to make it to the Super Bowl and the Eagles are there, you guys have a dress rehearsal when it comes to
He
a
can move.
running
Josh
player.
out last night. You can say what you want. He can move.
He can.
He had that run down the left side. He outrun the defense.
No, he's fast. He's a 4'4" guy.
He's also 6'5", 240.
And Fields is a big guy.
Yeah.
6'3".
Yeah.
Between 6'3"
So-
and 6'4".
so it's a
And
perfect
Fields
scenario
is
to
a
me.
powerful runner, the way in which he moves. Like I wouldn't call Fields elusive. There's a power to the way in which he moves.
Sure.
I don't mean he's going to run you over, but he just, it's like sprinters. There are certain sprinters. God, I'm dating myself, but like you go back to Bob Hayes. Bob Hayes had a
Bob
certain
Hayes.
body type.
Yeah.
He was powerfully built, and then there's other sprinters that are lean.
Yeah.
Fields is like a powerful runner.
Right.
Just
Gains.
yeah.
So another misperception might be that a guy like this is hard to sack, but that's not the case,
No.
because Justin Fields has been sacked quite a bit in his the second year here, and then he's facing a team today in the Eagles who overtook the Dallas Cowboys, they're good friends, for the NFL lead in sacks. The Eagles have 49 sacks, which is their most sacks through 13 weeks in more than 40 years. In fact, it's the second most they've ever had as a franchise through 13 games. 1987, the Eagles had 52 sacks in 13 weeks. This year, 49.
And 46 come from defensive linemen.
46 come from defensive linemen.
Two
That's
by
pretty
two by
impressive.
Edwards and one by Gardner Johnson. All other four, because Sweat and Reddick to me are defensive linemen. They're not linebackers.
They're edge
So
rushers.
46 come by defensive linemen.
You think this is the most complete defensive front that they've had in your experience? Even growing up watching the buddy teams, as far as from the inside.
that was-
wait.
that-
As
that
far
was-
as
I don't know
inside to
about
the
that.
outside. Well, I mean the stats say. I mean they're second
Well,
best.
those are
in-
stats.
But
stats
I
count.
would have to go back and see.
They
We
don't have
obviously-
the same offense.
Right,
either.
right,
That's
right.
given. Yeah.
But since you and I have covered the team,
Yeah.
me now 20, 21 years, I went back at that and I looked at the rotation in 17. They're just more talented now than they were
Oh,
in
I
17.
agree. They had to
right?
bring Jernigan off the field. I mean, you don't do that with Hargrave or Cox.
They're more
unless-
talented, and by
Yeah.
the way, they've not had anyone like Hassan Reddick. The show that he put on last week. I
Yeah.
don't care what the numbers say about sacks. Watch that tape. I heard from 5 people last week. I never get these many texts. Did you see Reddick this week? You got to see him.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to watch him.
So
Yeah.
are you
Holy
going back
smokes.
like in history?
Well,
You're
I
not
put it in historical terms.
You're
here,
not suggesting they're better than Reggie White, Jerome Brown,
individually,
Clyde
no.
Simmons.
Individually, no.
You know,
but
that
but
group.
As a group,
that was
I
a
said.
pretty good group.
Right.
Yeah, that was a group. That was a group, and I think that we have to put it in context. Our team now, they're playing with leads,
Yeah.
so it's not the same, right?
Yep.
It's different being in a close ball game and having to pass rush when there's a run element to it, right? Now these guys are up 20 points late in games, and now they can just pin their ears back and go rush the passer. So I think they have the privilege of having an offense that can score points.
Although they have gotten some pressure in the first half of the game. It's not like it's all in the
that's true.
second half, but they've got a great rotation. I've not seen a team before be legit 6 deep at D tackle. They are if they want to.
They're amazing. They're
by-
amazing.
And by the way,
That's what I was getting. The whole depth.
they're
of
not
the
a
group.
high percentage stunt team, so it's not like they play a lot of games up front.
They have been lately,
They've been
though.
doing
I
a
feel
little
like
more
lately they
lately.
have.
I was just
Yeah,
going to say
yeah.
that. They've started to do more lately.
I feel like they should have done that from the start.
Right,
But go for it.
when you look at their whole season, they have not been that.
Do you see their stunts guys getting home? Do you think they're working?
They work, yeah.
When Hassan is involved in stunts, they usually work.
Yeah.
And that's a testament to him. I love the way he moves. I love the way he works his hands.
Yeah,
He is great with his hands, and very very rarely are guys touching the frame of his body. And they have a great complement of rushers. You have Sweaty, who's the big lengthy rusher that can get off the ball and can bend a little bit. You have Hassan, that's more of a hands guy, that's a counter rusher. And then you have BG, who's an explosive bull rush guy. He's so low to the ground and it can get up into your body. And it's a great compliment of these guys together.
I want to get into a little bit more on Hassan Reddick because he's obviously the big piece in the offseason of an acquisition for this front. First, we're going to take a quick break and let you hear from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, big thanks to our friends at Sky Motor Cars. You can go visit them in Westchester, PA. If you stop in, make sure you tell them Adam and Jeff sent you. You will get a great deal. If not, visit them at SkyMotorCars.com.
And they could ship, too.
And they can ship.
Yep.
Right. All right. We were just talking about Hassan Reddick, the newest addition to the front seven. He's obviously made a big impact. I don't know if you guys know this, but he got his 10th sack last Sunday. He became the first player in NFL history to have 10 or more sacks in 3 straight years with 3 different teams. So he is sort of coming into his own. It actually,
I guess he's not a system rusher.
oh, he's total system.
You know, being able to rush the passer, that does travel, you know, from team to
I've
team.
heard it's an important
Yeah,
trait
yeah.
these days.
You know,
But I thought Jay made a great point about the hand usage because he's probably less than 240, and he can't really let people get into his body.
Mm-hmm.
So he's become really, really good with his hands.
Have you seen a maturation in his pass rush since he went from Arizona, which for the first 2 years didn't use him that way?
No, they tried to make him a stack backer because
Right.
of his size.
Right.
Because he came out of Temple, I think he was 239 at the combine.
Yep.
And you normally don't think of 239-pound guys as edge rushers.
And he's a
then
6'1".
Robert Mathis was 235, but he was special. So normally you see a 239-pound pass rusher at Temple, which is not a Power 5 school, and you think, okay, he's not going to do that in the NFL.
Right.
So they tried to move him. I haven't studied him in great detail.
I just
where
remember
he was
that
prior.
the book on him was, and Adam and I did our homework when they signed him, was that explosive,
Yep.
unique athlete.
Which he is.
But if a tackle gets his hands on him from the start because of that size
Yep.
you're talking about, you can block him or
Well,
ride him up the field.
He and coaches know that.
Yeah.
So that's why the hand usage, it tells me too, and I don't know Hassan Reddick, but it tells me he's probably very coachable because you need to learn how to use your hands. That's a learned trait.
Right.
You don't just grow up, I guess maybe some guys instinctively can, but normally you don't just grow up being able to do that. That's a learned trait.
Right.
So he's probably very coachable because he knew that, hey, I can't get caught up in guys' bodies because then I'm not going to get through.
Right. When they signed him to a 3-year, $45 million, $15 a year, that number seemed interesting because it wasn't necessarily top 5 in pass rush for a guy who had double-digit sacks, but then it also reflected what we had said is that there's a reason he's on his 3rd team in 3 years, but he's clearly been such an asset to when you added him to this mix of other pass rushers.
No one likes him because he's so explosive. I mean, this game last week, you just couldn't block him. I know the Giants' offensive line isn't very good, but that's not really the point. The point is that
their tackles are okay, though.
They're not.
Evan Neal is
struggling.
He had some serious issues.
Yeah, he's
That's
having
true.
But he just adds something, as you were saying, to something they haven't had. And by the way, if you remember that 17 Senior Bowl, he went there. The word was he was around a 3rd-round grade because teams were not sure what he was at the next level. I'm sure the Cardinals were not.
Right.
He goes up, tears it up. He becomes a 1st-round pick. And then, what Greg was talking about, they made him an inside linebacker.
Right.
Because they weren't sure how to use him. He goes to Carolina. Now they figured out with him late in his career with Arizona before his rookie deal expired. So he goes to Carolina, has a good year, but they also were not sure how to use him because they also had Phil Snow who was let go. They weren't kind of sure what scheme they wanted to use, but most teams said he's got to be 3-4 outside linebacker. And here's where we are.
All right, well, he's in some pretty good company lately. Since the start of 2020, he is 2nd. He has the 2nd most sacks, actually 3rd most sacks in the NFL, tied for 2nd. The only players with more sacks than Hassan Reddick since the start of 2020 are Myles Garrett and TJ Watt.
Really?
That is some pretty good company right there.
Wow.
Yeah. And if I gave you 5 guesses on who Hassan Reddick is tied with for 3rd most sacks, I don't think you guys would get it. He's a good pass rusher.
Are you talking about edge players then?
Edge play? Well, no, it's just most sacks, but he is an edge player.
Most sacks since when?
To the start of 2020. TJ Watt has 40. Myles Garrett has 40. Hassan Reddick has 33.5, and he's tied with this player.
Not Chandler Jones?
It's not Chandler Jones.
Cameron Jordan?
Nope, not Cam Jordan. He is an AFC player.
Oh.
He flies under the radar, and he's really good. He's on a good team, too. It's just another team that just flies under the radar. Because his name is Trey Hendrickson.
Oh, right.
I was just thinking Bengals.
Yeah, I could have given you guys 7 guesses, and I don't think you would have got
No, he's a very underrated player. He, too, by the way, signed a big deal.
When you said AFC, the first thing Bengals, I'm like,
he had one
Hubbard,
he had 1 year of major production with the Saints.
Yeah.
And people were wondering, like, wow, Cincinnati's, they're getting out of their comfort system, giving him a huge deal. He's lived up to it.
He has. And right behind him, another player who is good that doesn't get that much recognition is Matthew Judon.
Yep.
At 33.
Oh, he's
relentless.
He is getting it now. But like you said, a lot of people would have said Chandler Jones, or they would have said
say Chandler Jones.
Condor, or somebody else. Yeah, there you go. All right, so we're going to take a split-second break right now and hear from our friends at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook.
Game night for me is every night. At the place where I meet up with the guys, grab a cold one, and watch the big game on the big screen. So whether it's the money line, the pass line, or a parlay, I'm in it to win. This is my city, and this is my place.
Thanks to our friends at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook. You already see people filing in. We're here at Jack's Bar and Grill. Now the Eagles are favored for the 13th time in 13 games.
Incredible. By the way, I saw a guy, he's in the pit, so maybe he's a dealer.
Yeah.
A T.O. starter Eagles jersey from 19, so you know that thing's like almost 20 years old.
Yeah.
How do people hold on to these things for so long?
I don't know. I know that when I walked in at the first table, the dealer was wearing a Dallas Cowboys jersey and the pit boss was wearing a New York Giants jersey.
Really?
I thought maybe I was in the wrong
You know the
spot.
players?
I didn't know what was going on. No, I didn't get to see the number. But hey, Rivers Casino is home for everybody. Everybody has a good time when they come here, even some Cowboys fans, surprisingly. All right, like I said, Eagles favored for 13th time in the 13 games. They are favored by 9 today, last I checked, although I think it moved to 8.5. I'll get a second check on that.
Without Goddard.
And the over-under is 48.5. Food from Jack's is now available every weekend right here at Jack's Bar and Grill for every Birds game. Specials include $2 Miller Lights, $15 bottomless chips and salsa, $12 pretzel bites, and $16 easy peel shrimp. You've got to play the home field advantage spin and win contest. All you got to do is place a qualifying game day bet in the Bet River Sportsbook. You can enter the spin to win contest by placing a $50 bet on pro football, The maximum number of entries per wager is 3 per transaction. 8 winners are pulled via random drawing to spin the wheel. Prizes include free play, cash, and 2 tickets to a Birds home game. And if the Birds win, 2 more winners are selected. All right, so all that here and more at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook, where Philly loves a winner. Hey, Jason, I wanted to ask you this with the Eagles playing the Bears today. I know you grew up a big NBA fan. You've talked about being a Chicago Bulls fan. Yeah. Were you much of a Bears fan?
I was. I won't lie.
Yeah. Who was your players that you loved watching? They weren't exactly known for putting out great wide receivers.
They weren't that time. But I would say it would have to be like Neil Anderson.
Oh, I love Neil Anderson.
It would have to be like
running back. He's good.
He followed Walter.
Yeah, followed Walker.
He was really good for a number of years.
Yeah, Curtis Conway, those guys.
CC, he could run now.
How old were you in '85? How old were you in '85?
Marty Booker.
Marty Booker.
How
about our guy Jim Miller? You like Jim Miller?
Jim Miller, quarterback. Yeah.
Mills.
Those guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny times. When I'm thinking about it, I'm missing Waddle. Tom Waddle.
Number 86.
How about Mark Carey?
Tom Waddle.
Number 87. Tom Waddle.
They had Brown, the safety from Nebraska.
Mike Brown.
Mike Brown. Mike Brown was responsible. Brian Dawkins probably kept him out of a lot of Pro Bowls over
Right,
here.
no, he's a good player.
Peanut Tillman, of course, in last 15 years.
Yeah. How about the '85 Bears? Does that carry any resonance for you?
Yeah, I was 2 years old, but would I have? I knew who everyone was during the time, but
Willie Gault.
Willie Gault, fast, couldn't catch, but
He could run though.
He
could run.
Was he in the Olympics, Willie Gault?
He might have been, yeah.
Well, the Bears have not won a playoff game since 2010, but they are 30-16-1 all time against the Eagles, including the playoffs. Now, I think you were probably a senior in high school when Donovan McNabb went to the playoffs and beat the Bears at Soldier Field. It was 33-14. You might have been right in between, senior high school, first year at Michigan. Well, you would have been probably a senior in high. Do you remember that game at all?
I really
2002, I think.
I really don't remember that game, but I was always a Donovan McNabb fan because I knew he went to Mount Carmel, and I'm a Southside Chicago kid, so I always rooted for Simeon Rice, always rooted for Donovan McNabb, players like that.
Simeon Rice played at Illinois with guy Kevin Hardy, linebacker.
Who people thought would be great.
Number 51.
Him
they
and
were
Donovan
good.
were teammates in high school.
Yeah, how about that?
Simeon Rice and Donovan.
They were?
Yeah, Mount Carmel.
Wow.
Kevin Hardy went to University of Illinois.
Illinois,
yeah. Was it kind of cool for you to then get drafted to the Eagles and be playing with Donovan?
Yeah, that was definitely a cool. I told him he was one of my favorite players, and he was like, I told him I used to play with him on Madden, and it was,
oh my God! Oh my goodness gracious!
And he looked at me and rolled his eyes like, "Thanks, kid."
You were trying to get the ball to come your way pretty early.
Right.
You were greasing the wheels early.
And the funniest part is my last game in the NFL. Julian Edelman tells me the same thing. It's like, dude, no one realized how good you are. I used to play with you on my video game. I'm like, dude, shut up.
I want to be a slot receiver just like you. He was pretty good.
That's great. That's awesome.
What are the chances? Did you always pass out what he said? I was like, what?
Oh, no, it was him and Amendola.
Did you know you had to retire then?
I knew it was over.
That's pretty funny.
That's awesome.
That is pretty good. All right, listen, I'm all about the stats today, and here's an amazing stat from last week's annihilation of the Giants. The Eagles ran for 253 yards. That's the 9th time in 30 games over the past 2 years that they've ran for more than 200 yards in a game. But guess what? That's not the incredible stat. The incredible stat is they only had 60 rushing yards at halftime.
Now that you mention it, okay.
Isn't that amazing?
It did seem like they were popping maybe 5-yard
First
runs.
play.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The dam broke in the second half.
Because as we talked about on this show at this time last week, the Eagles were going to come out throwing against the Giants, even though the Giants had a bad run.
I mentioned that last week.
We said they were.
I almost texted you and said, "See, I told you they would come out throwing."
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
I was skeptical, I think, because of the rain, right?
Yeah.
They had a little rain.
Right. They were ahead 21-0 after the first 3 possessions. They had 2 touchdowns of over 30 yards. A.J. Brown and Miles Sanders, by the way,
One before half.
both
Well,
went over 1,000 yards in that game for the
The
season.
other interesting thing, too, because I made a note of this, is Sanders rushed for 10 for 104 out of 12 personnel with 2 tight ends on the field, and they featured gap scheme. 9 of those 10 runs were all gap scheme out of 12 personnel.
Do they switch from zone to gap a lot, or is it? Or they
Well, they do both, but the last week I just happened to notice, I'm watching the tape, and I'm seeing, okay, all these gap scheme runs. So I just took note of it.
Now, for those at home, the difference between zone and gap scheme.
Well, gap scheme is a man concept where you pull
Right.
usually a guard or a tackle. Sometimes the Eagles pull a tackle.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, obviously Johnson can pull because he's super athletic. So is Mailata. But most teams will pull a guard
Right.
across the formation, and you get double teams front side.
Sure.
So you know that's the way that works. Zone is zone. You know, you're no one pulls.
Blocking
a
a space.
You're blocking who's
Reach
kind of
blocks,
there.
right.
Yeah.
So I think the Packers game, they did a lot of the gap. They pulled Mailata and
Yep.
Johnson quite a bit.
Yeah,
in
see,
that
in their gap scheme, they tend to pull tackles. Most
Yeah.
teams pull guards.
Right. Well, I was going to say the Eagles probably have more athletic
They
tackles
do,
than
because
most. to be able to
Dickerson
do
would
it.
not be considered he's strong as hell,
Right.
but he would not be considered athletic.
Correct. Right. Jason Kelsey, probably
Would
one of
be.
the best at his
Yeah.
position
Yeah.
at doing that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how that applies today, because Matt Eberflus is the Bears' first-year head coach. He came from Indianapolis. He was sort of known earlier in his career as a guy who's going to play a lot of cover two. He was linebackers coach, I believe, under Kiffin in Dallas, was it?
Yes,
They played a lot
he
of
was.
cover two in Dallas when he was there.
He was.
They played a lot of cover two early when he was the defensive coordinator
Well-
in Indianapolis, but then they wound up switching out of that a little bit.
Here's what he is. I talked to an offensive coordinator who's played against him numerous times, and he said his basic MO, which the numbers bear out, by the way, is first and second down, he'll play a lot of zone. You
Yep.
pretty much know what you're going to get. They play a lot of zone. He increases his man coverage percentage significantly on third down.
Okay.
That's
Interesting.
Now, whether that happens today, again, you're facing a quarterback that can hurt you in man coverage, so that may or may not happen.
Right.
We don't know the answer to that.
Right.
But that's his basic MO.
Probably good for them then, though, to get guys like
Right.
Kyler Gordon back, Jaquan Brisker back, guys who can run a little bit in that league.
And you could see someone
Gilbert.
like Brisker, even if he's not a spy per se, you know, even though he's a rookie, he's a pretty savvy player. You could see someone like Brisker being involved in trying to deal with Hurts on third down situations.
When you watch their tape, I mean, you said they play mostly zone. Is it a pure cover two early on? or-
No, they're predominant single high, but they play significant snaps of split safety. You know,
Okay.
so they mix a lot. There's not one thing. When I say predominant, that could be 55, 60%. That's not 80%.
Right.
So they do play both single high and split safety.
Right.
They're going to be like cover 3 first down, and there's some snaps against the Packers that they had 10 people on second 5
Yeah,
within 5 yards of the
Yeah.
line of scrimmage. So there's like some cover 3s. You will see some cover 2 in there, but it's
question.
going to be on run downs. They're going to be in a single safety middle.
How often do we talk when the Eagles play a team that plays this style of defense? Do we talk about Dallas Goedert and their ability to work the seams? They're not going to have Dallas today, but they've been doing it more with their other interior weapons.
Calcaterra is a guy, he's a seam buster. I saw this in Senior Bowl during practices. I get there's a lot of soft coverage, but he's so fast. Like, if you watch the coaching tape, you don't see guys move that well. I get he's not the biggest guy in the world. He's smaller and athletic. They should be able to get him down the seam. And I believe, based on what the latest forecast is, they should be able to throw. We know they typically come out throwing anyway. If the weather holds up and the forecast stays the same, he's going to have a chance to do something today.
What did you think of Calcaterra last game?
I thought he was serviceable. I think people were saying that he did like a great job. He was serviceable. He was okay.
I think the bar was for blocking, right? We're talking about
Yeah,
great
yeah,
job.
but
I think the bar was low, so when we saw him actually come across
He's
the
a
line of
receiver
scrimmage,
more than a blocker.
Yeah. And,
Right.
and even in pass catching, like he ran the route and caught it. He didn't. It wasn't like he
didn't have
broke
to put
someone down
Yeah.
or did something special. It's like at the end of the game, you see a stat line that says 1 catch for 10 yards, and it's 2 different guys. One guy went 10 yards and caught the
But
ball, and the
they
other
are
guy
happy
caught it
with his-
within 1 yard of scrimmage and made 72 people miss
Right.
and made 10 yards.
You're
know,
happy
so-
with his blocking, though. That's why he's on the field.
Yeah.
the fact that they put him in line showed
Yeah.
that they were willing to give him.
But I
they
think,
played him
you're also
4th,
dealing
5th,
with a rookie who's not really expected to play a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that, as Adam said, his traits based on his college career, he's He's got seam stretching ability. He's got vertical ability. He can run crossers. We saw him earlier this season catch a crosser. I forget who it was against, where he took it for 40 yards. Went down the sideline. So no, he's a receiver more than he is a blocker in order to play a lot. And obviously he's not going to play a ton, but he could become the number 2 down the road.
Does he look bigger to you? Anybody? No.
Bigger than
when he got to camp?
When he got to camp, no. I don't know.
I can't say that I noticed it.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, though, Jay, that's a big thing with him is that he just needed to add some size and strength.
To me,
which
it looked
normally
bigger.
happens between year 1 and year 2. Yeah. No, but I thought from a technique standpoint, to watch him block an angle block and do the things that a blocking tight end needs to do, I thought he was adequate.
He's not going to move
that's
anyone.
What I said. I said it was bad. I said he was serviceable.
You want him to get in the way, and he did a good job of getting in the way last week.
I mean, we see guys come from offenses like SMU, spread offenses, who have zero idea
that are
and aren't even put in that position.
Well, don't forget, he didn't play football the year before.
Right.
And he came from Oklahoma, where he was essentially a wide receiver, a split wide receiver.
Sure.
So, I mean, he does not have a lot of experience as a blocking tight end.
Right.
Just to give you a comparison, he's more advanced than Ertz was as a rookie.
As a blocker?
Yeah. Not that Calcaterra is a good blocker, but Ertz really was not strong enough.
God, I almost
And
don't
Ertz came
remember
from a
Ertz's
school
personnel
where they
at that
actually
point.
ran the ball.
They did,
Right.
and he just not a good blocker when he came here.
I just don't think that he was interested in it.
Ertz?
Yeah. Like, and when you come from Stanford
Yeah.
and you run the ball as much as Jim
Right.
Harbaugh
Well,
runs it, and you're bad at blocking, you're not interested in
Right.
it.
You were with Ertz here, right, for 1 year?
Yeah.
I guess that's where you got that.
You're really good to talk about this because when you got to the team, I think Brent Selleck had only got there a year before, right?
Yeah.
And he was a pass-catching tight end in Cincinnati who learned how to do what he needed to do to become a better blocker.
You meant Brent Sedler came a year after me.
Oh, you were before Brent?
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm getting old.
Brent came, I think, a year after.
Right. So you witnessed his transformation or his evolution.
Brent was a big body person, and and we had LJ, and his job was to be the second tight end. So guys do what they have to do to survive in the NFL.
Right.
And if it was the case that Zach was not expected to be, the starting tight end, and a second round pick that's the guy, he probably would have been the guy in there putting on weight, battling with people too. But when you're expected to be a pass-catching tight end, and that's the role that they've been offering you, you're going to do that.
What Selleck did in 13 when Chip came in here, he was the one guy to come in early and find out what Chip expected of him. And he kind of changed his style. He became more of an angle blocker. I remember talking to one of the coaches. He just accepted his role because with Zach coming in, and he became not a great blocker, but way improved in that area.
And there's different kind of blocks for tight ends, and running games can, and I don't want to say they build a run game around a tight end for sure, but I mean, there's not a lot of tight ends, let's say, that can block one-on-one consistently versus DNs. Some guys can. George Kittle can. But most can't, particularly the ones coming out of college now, especially if they're good receivers, because they're going to be mostly detached in college.
Right.
So you're not going to ask a guy to come into the league who's like a Calcaterra and say, okay, now your job is to block one-on-one in our strong side run game against a DN. He's not going to be able to do that.
They won't ask him to do that.
So they won't ask him to do that. So you do a lot more angle blocks and leverage blocks and pin blocks, seal blocks, things that are easier, relatively speaking, to do.
Sure.
Don't dismiss Jack Stoll. The coaches love this like he's their son. So
one of the proudest moments of my life, we had a toss play to my side. I had to get the defensive end right.
You didn't crack
him down.
Did you?
I had to crack him.
So it's basically a pin pull concept.
It's a pin pull type of thing,
Yeah.
and that's pretty much easy, right?
Okay.
You got a guy, he doesn't see you.
Right.
But they shifted. And now the dude ended up outside of me when he read
and he's still
it.
your responsibility.
And he's still my responsibility. So here I am. I believe it was Alden Smith.
Oh, he's a big
And
dude.
we ended up making 8 yards on the play. I'm literally this low off the ground, battling him. He's getting me, but we made it work. And I came out to the play. The sideline went crazy. Good job, Jason. I was like, this is the best moment.
Who was cheering for you? Who was your?
Oh, the entire sideline,
nice.
because if I don't make that block versus the dude that's outweighing me by 60-something pounds.
And it's pretty strong.
I was like, hey.
6'5",
It was the
pounds. Yeah.
best day of my life.
I was going to say, as you were telling the story and not saying who it was, I was figuring like Michael Strahan or Clay Matthews Jr. I was thinking, whoever it was, I mean, Alden Smith's really good too, by the way, especially at that point. But.
Alden Smith belongs in
Alden Smith, without his personal issues, would have been an unbelievably great player.
What an
Might have been a Hall of Fame
talking about a
talent.
mean player.
Yeah.
Like, you know, just a mean human.
Yeah.
Alden Smith's a mean person.
Did you apologize after you put him on the ground?
Did he say anything to you?
Like, just the conversations that guys have with Alden Smith is like, this dude's the mean person.
Well, that proved to be true. All right, please check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of Philadelphia sports teams, all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. Make sure you're checking them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation. So we also spent a good deal of time not only talking about coming out passing last week, but we've talked about Jalen Hurts, his improvement as a passer. Last week, 21 for 31, 217, 2 touchdowns, a 109.2 passer rating. He is now, I believe, the NFL leader in passer rating, at least entering this week. He went over Tua Tagovailoa.
He's only thrown 3 picks all
What's
year.
that?
He's
Yeah,
only thrown 3 picks all year.
Not all were
He's
on
higher?
him either.
I think
was
he's
at
number 1 in
108.
passer rating.
So he's over 110 right now?
Now, Tua played yesterday, and I didn't see what his stat line was, but
Well, he's had 2 bad games. I'm sure he's...
He was actually, given the weather, he was pretty good yesterday. He didn't throw any picks.
They dropped a few.
They dropped a
very
few,
catchable passes.
and his completion percentage wasn't super high, but there were no turnovers, no picks.
there you go. Played another great game. I want to go to the play you guys brought up on Q&A, and I knew we would wind up talking about it. It was a very innocuous play at the time, but to me it winds up being symbolic of what Jalen Hurts has become as far as what he's seeing and what he's doing. 3rd and 6, I believe it was, opening drive. As we predicted and talked about, Wink Martindale brings a blitz. Jalen Hurts does an excellent job recognizing it, and he puts a ball to Devontae Smith on like a flag route.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Right there, where only Devontae can catch it. First down, they finish off the drive.
It was
with
out of
a,
empty.
a Sanders touchdown.
I made a note of it. It was out of empty.
Out of empty set, right, which we, again, talked about the benefit of empty against a team that blitzes that much. You
We
spread your
talked about
bodies
that
out.
last week, right?
Absolutely did.
And then I want to talk about what I thought his best throw of the game
Okay,
was.
we'll do both. So I know you brought up on Q&A. To me, that illustrated almost everything as far as ball placement, knowing what was coming, being decisive, being a pocket passer in this league.
Yeah, to me, I thought that he read it and saw that it was going to be a blitz and knew where his outlet was and didn't depend on a receiver at all. I thought Devontae Smith lost the route actually against Fabian Moreau, and
Yeah, it was
he
well
lost
covered.
it.
Yeah.
But the ball placement and timing was impeccable, and you can't beat that. So I thought Jalen Hurts understood the offense, understood what needs to be done. And again, Patrick Mahomes style is to give a little ground and make the throw to that side. And I thought it was a great read by him.
And 7 DBs, which we had talked about.
Yep. Yeah. Is that the dollar defense? thing?
Dollar.
Yeah.
Everybody has
Whatever
different
they
names.
wanna
I call it dollar.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I'll tell you what I thought was his best throw,
Go ahead.
which is probably one people don't think about. Second possession, deep in their own territory, 3rd and 4. He hit Watkins for 9.
Watkins, yep.
And I'll tell you why I thought that was his best throw. Because it was Fire X inside pressure. You probably remember this play?
The out route for Tawat to
Yeah, it was
on the
only
third
9
on
yards.
the
It was
third and
four.
third and
It was
okay, yeah.
3rd and 4 in the second possession.
Yeah.
And it was a Fire X inside pressure, okay? And Jefferson came clean through the A gap, okay? Because he started on one side and came to the opposite A gap, and sometimes that's very hard to pick up depending on your protection.
Sure.
So he comes clean through the A gap. So the reason I thought it was his best throw is because he has to throw that ball a beat early. Okay, the pressure's in his face. He knows he has to throw the ball a beat early. And in the NFL, fractions matter in the NFL. So now if he throws an out route with the normal velocity, the ball's going to get there too soon. Okay, because he has to throw it a beat early.
Right.
So Hurts took just a little off of it because it still had to time up with Watkins' break. Okay, that's the nuanced quarterbacking that shows development.
Sure.
Okay, because like I said, if he just throws that the normal way on an out route, and by the way, you're very conscious on an out route because if it's picked off, it's a touchdown. So he understood where Watkins was, where the corner was, and knew he had to take a little off the throw, and It was beautiful.
Right.
So it's only a 9-yard gain on 3rd and 4. It doesn't seem like a big play, other than it's 3rd down, but it's not a big gain. It's not an explosive play. But I thought that was really detailed, nuanced quarterbacking on that play.
Sure.
To me, he gave ground on that play. I believe it's
He did.
He was in the slot, left sideline.
Left.
Yeah. So we were talking about the same play, right?
Yep.
So he gave a little ground on that play and laid it out just like you're saying, and understanding what coverage it is. It's zero coverage.
Was it zero on that play?
But no.
Yeah,
but no,
No,
you're fine.
yeah,
You said it was you talked about the stunt that
Right,
got
it was a
there.
Fire X,
Yeah, you talked about the stunt, but
yeah.
it was a zero coverage behind it.
Right.
And yes, you lay it right there on the sideline, bam.
That's nuanced quarterbacking, Jeff, because you can't. Normally, an out route, you want the ball to get there.
Right.
But if he did that, Watkins wouldn't have turned around yet. It would have been an incomplete pass.
He's a big-time timing quarterback. He throws with such great timing. He's come a long way in that area.
Yeah, I think that's probably, I mean, there have been so many strides, but with this offense and what they ask him to do and RPOs and things of that nature, that his timing and ball placement, to me, are at the top of his
It's gotten
development.
so much better. So much better.
Now he had 9 lives on his first touchdown.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that play.
No, go ahead.
Was that a good decision, or was it a decision that worked out?
It was a good decision. The
throw, though.
just like Greg made the point that he gave it enough air to get to the sideline. He gave that one too much air. That ball should have been thrown on the line in order to give Devontae Smith a chance to protect himself. If Julian Love, say this, and this is
Julian Love, by the way, should have made that play.
he could have either picked it
No.
or put him in the hospital.
You don't want to pick it there on 4th down. You want to bat it down
You
and
wanna
get the
bat it
ball
down.
back
You're
in
talking
the
about the
field.
4th and 4.
Yeah. Tell it to Ed Reed that's going
I
to
know,
Hall of Fame
I know,
for
I
getting
know.
touchdowns,
Well,
right?
yeah.
So,
I know in your mind it's hard when the ball's
your
right
mind-
there to
but
not
yeah.
pick it, but
it's the right decision, the wrong trajectory and speed to get it there.
But the best part of that play, he actually changed that play at the line of scrimmage based on seeing the
Another
defense.
part of development.
So that's another part of the development because it was not a called slot fade, but he saw the coverage, he saw the single high, and he called the slot fade because you could see him do it, and I know for a fact he did from talking to people. So he changed the play before the snap.
He just got to keep his eyes in the middle.
Yeah.
On that play.
Because Love,
he just got there too soon.
look, Love is a good player, but he's not a big-time rangy
Rangy
post
guy.
safety.